Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Some of you, it may even be good evening. My name's Tom Jenkins. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to this webinar on how advisors can help with the distribution chain in North America, and also what the general situation is like in North America in terms of travel. This is an ever-evolving new situation that we're confronted with. These are interesting times, and that's one of the great curses we know, but it also may be an opportunity. We'll find out. I'm joined here by Mark and Suzanne. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. We'll also be being joined with Judith, who I think's got one or two technical issues coming up, but the moment she joins, I'll ask her to introduce herself. But in the meantime, I've got Mark. Mark, please introduce yourself and say what you do.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Thank you so much for the opportunity first to represent ASTA and the U.S. travel advisor community on the call today. I'm Mark Meter, the Executive VP for Corporate at ASTA. And for those that don't know, ASTA is the American Society of Travel Advisors. We're the entity that supports the travel agency community as well as travelers and the supplier community in travel from both a government perspective as well as an industry perspective as advocates for that community. So we are broadly based throughout the United States, representing approximately 190,000 plus travel advisors across the country. We have well over 10, 11, maybe up to 12,000 domestic travel agency companies as part of our business. And an interesting factoid you might be interested in knowing about us is that 98% of our agencies are actually small businesses, 98%. And 80% of those are female-owned small business as well. So about in 2023, $115 billion in gross travel agency bookings occurred in the United States, which is sizable. And by 2026, this year, we expect that to grow in excess of 140 billion US dollars. So that's a little bit about me, and a little bit about about me. I've been in the travel industry for many, many years, having worked for a multitude of travel suppliers, GDSs, airlines, et cetera, and have been with ASTA for the last 11 years.
Suzanne.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm Suzanne Acton-Gervais. I'm the president of the Association of Canadian Travel Agencies and Travel Advisors. So ASTA's counterpart north of the border, and we represent travel agencies and travel advisors, and we advocate for a strong, competitive, and resilient travel sector across the country. Given the population proportion of Canada versus United States, we are smaller, but we are Canada's national association. We represent approximately 24,000 travel advisors that work in travel agencies and another 6,000 independent travel advisors. Our role, very much like Mark mentioned, is obviously we represent the united voice of travel advisors in Canada. We are their advocates when it comes to federal or provincial governments and with partners and suppliers. And I will stop there, but very, very pleased to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Well, I think what we might start, because this is the thing that's in the forefront of everyone's minds at the moment, is how is Europe looking at the moment, both in terms of last year and in terms of what's happening at the moment on the fringes of Europe, which in normal circumstances would cause grave concern. But I'll start with you, Mark.
Sure. So I can tell you that from a 2025 perspective, reports from the European Travel Commission indicate that international travel arrivals in Europe grew year on year in early 2025. And you may know that 80% of reporting European destinations saw growth from North American markets during that time frame as well. So Europe has been and remains a very strong and important destination, particularly for Americans. I think it's the same for Canadians as well, Suzanne, but it's indeed a vital, important market. It's a top long-haul destination for U.S. travelers. Demand, in spite of what's happening in today's world, remains resilient, despite the geopolitics, if you will, and conflicts happening in other parts of the world, and despite economic pressures. So Again, growth in terms of European destinations for North Americans and U.S. travelers in particular is quite strong. So Europe is not just stable; it remains aspirational for U.S. travel. With, I would say, it's a bucket list destination in general. Multi-country itineraries, experiential travel, and some specific destinations Europe with strong demand remain in place.
Mm-hmm. Suzanne?
Yes, same for Canada. So from the travel advisor perspective, Europe continues to perform very, very strongly. Demand remains very resilient. And again, as mentioned by Mark, there's a lot that Europe has to offer: the diversity, the cultural depth, and strong repeat appeal for North American travelers. We have great air connectivity from Canada. And what we're seeing is that travelers are booking earlier, staying longer, and placing strong emphasis on overall experience and reliability. Demand remains particularly strong where there is confidence in air access, ease of travel, and flexibility. What we've seen as well is some data from Canada, from our government. It's called Statistics Canada. And year over year, we're seeing an increase. And just recently in February 2026, overseas travel continues to grow with an increase of 7.2% year over year, according to Stats Canada.
And travelers are spending a lot more money too. They have money to spend both in the US and Canada, right, Suzanne?
Yes, the Canadians are certainly going further, staying longer. What I will say is, indeed, they are spending more. The reality, however, is what we have in Canada is the value of the Canadian dollar compared to the euro, the British pound, or the US dollar. So that obviously is something that obviously impacts our industry, where it is more costly. But however, having said that, Canadians are not staying home. They are traveling. They are going further, staying longer, and Europe is definitely a winner.
Well, I mean, what heartening news! And are you seeing any tailing off of demand at the moment, or I mean, Mark said it was looking fairly robust demand. You're not seeing any denting in people being concerned about traveling to Europe at the moment?
I would say, given the situation in the Gulf, the Middle East, et cetera, there's certainly concern with what's happening, and it's being watched carefully. But we're also doing some surveying of our members to gauge that result. And I would tell you that there's been some modest changes in existing bookings, as well as modest changing in terms of future bookings. But most agencies are in a wait and see mode. It's not clear how long the impact will be felt. And people are, as I said, they're still booking. And we're happy to say that our agencies are not feeling overly harmed by the situation at this time. Needless to say, if you're traveling to the Middle East and the countries impacted, there's impact there. But I think that that is being watched carefully by our members and certainly by us at ASTA as well.
Does that apply to you as well, Suzanne?
Absolutely. And in fact, with what's happening in the Middle East, we might see an increase in even more increase in Europe, given the impacts on accessibility to travel in the region. Having said that, one thing to keep in mind as we speak here today, the situation is very, very fluid. We're monitoring, and perhaps other regions have seen increases already. Canadian carriers are currently, I would say, two major ones are looking at fuel surcharges. Other two are still monitoring. So again, that could impact, obviously, the cost. But again, as I said, Canadians are not staying home. They are traveling. They are looking for experiences that have value. And when I say value, it's not only from a cost perspective. There's a trust perspective. There's a predictability perspective. There is the value of the experience perspective. They want curated experiences. And so what we're seeing currently is that there is still a strong demand for travel. And again, just given North America's positioning, Europe is very, very strong. They're influenced by the ease of movement. They're also looking at seasonality, shoulder seasons, confidence in the overall travel experience, as I mentioned, and crowd considerations. So if there's any hidden gems, obviously there's the main destinations that will always be attractants, but they're also looking for some hidden gems, and that's where travel advisors can really, really assist and offer these curated experiences in order to better inform the traveler, so that they not only make the trip the most enjoyable, the most valuable, but also that they protect their investment in the trip as well.
You know, so Tom, if I could add to that, Suzanne, the same applies here in the United States. I would tell you that from a European demand perspective, we're seeing strong demand for the likes of Italy, Spain, Greece, particularly Paris in France, particularly London in the United Kingdom. But we're also seeing emerging growth in the Nordic countries, and then what I'd call secondary cities. Cities secondary because they may be a little bit smaller, but a lot of carriers, a lot of airlines are now providing new and additional lift, given the development of aircraft that have more flexibility in terms of where they go, single aisle cabins, et cetera. So air access, value clarity, advisor education directly influence which destinations capture U.S. market share. And I would say that you know, the influence of travel advisors have on the American market, the U.S. market, in terms of their clientele, is helping them determine the destination of choice, the length of their stay, itinerary routing, and the tour operator and DMC selections. So that influence is strongest, I would say, for the agencies when they influence what I'd call multi-country trips, high-end travel, like we're saying, they've got money to spend. And then complex itineraries, which are evolving and becoming more and more the framework of today's traveler. So advisors in the U.S. actively shape where and how Americans travel in Europe, hence the connection between the advisor community in the United States and tour operators in Europe is all the more key and important.
Suzanne, I mean, Mark's mentioned some of the countries that appear to be winning at the moment. Are they the same ones for you?
I would say they are. Indeed, they are. Again, we have great air accessibility throughout the country, particularly from the east of Canada. We are a very large nation, but throughout the country to many of these same destinations. And as Mark mentioned as well, there is increased interest in these curated experiences in what we would call secondary destinations. And clients often arrive with ideas, but then travel advisors help shape the final decisions based on suitability, budget, seasonality, reliability is a big one, as I mentioned earlier, predictability right now. So they absolutely influence destination choice, length of stays, operator selections, and particularly where trust already exists. So obviously there is that opportunity between the relationship between travel advisors, travel agencies, and local DMCs and tour operators.
Yeah, I know. We're speaking as an ex-tour operator. We're wholly reliant on travel advisors explaining to customers what they should expect when they come on a tour. The people who hadn't been properly briefed were under the impression that they could do a 12-day comprehensive tour of Europe with roughly 45 minutes of driving a day, and this was not the case, and some of them were in shock. But it shows you the importance of the intermediation that exists between the client and the tour operator that you represent, a real adding of value. I mean, there are two areas that all the national tourist offices are desperate for us all to engage with. One is generating demand away from the main honeypot centers, and you've answered that question immediately. The other one is trying to explore the idea of low season travel or shoulder and off peak travel. Do you think there's any increasing demand for this in your areas? I'll start with Mark, if I may. Mark,
you know, I would say it's a good question, and I think the answer is maybe an obvious one, in that the seasoned traveler, as you described it, Tom, tends to be the more affluent traveler, and indeed what we're seeing is there's more money to be spent. To be honest, I think going back to the days of the the pandemic started people thinking about what is key and important to them from a life perspective. And the need and desire to travel remains key and top of mind. And what we found in earlier research was that if travelers had to give something up, they might rather think about delaying the purchase of a new car and foregoing that instead of taking a wonderful trip that might be a little bit longer, extended, family focused, multi-generational, and of greater. What we're seeing in the U.S. is more focus on luxury. The nicer, more luxurious the trip, the more people are attracted to it. And that doesn't just go for the ultra high-end traveler. People are willing to spend their money, their hard-earned money, on travel because it's important to them, an important way to grow, see the world, and become part of really what I call a more global community. So yeah, it's important.
Suzanne, is this the case? Because I mean, I know we were hearing a lot of time after COVID that air companies were having no problem filling the front of their planes. You know, this was these tickets were flying out. They were having more of a tough time filling up the economy, which is, you know, is news in terms of demand. Is this drift towards the high end occurring in Canada?
I think we see the same trend. There is obviously a demand for luxe, but there's a demand for everything. What we're seeing across the availability of flights is that they are booked. And unfortunately, when things do not go according to plan, rebooking becomes very, very challenging because flights are full. So that's a trend that we're seeing. And I believe Mark is seeing it in the US as well. There's definitely a demand, to answer your question about shoulder season or seasonality. Absolutely. And there's great opportunities here, both for travel advisors and for tour operators to promote it. Look, we're always going to see peak season travel. It just happens to be when many families are on vacation, right? Or other times of the year that's when people are taking their vacation or off from work or school. We'll always see that. However, when those that have flexibility, what we'll call in, you know, their for example, Gen Xers, where perhaps they're able to take time in spring or fall, or what I'll call the generation up from there, where I like to call the go years, where they're retired and they're still able to go and travel and discover the world. I love that term, go years. They're able to do luxe. They're able to go during shoulder season. I think there's a great opportunity for us all around. And I think another thing to flag as well, opportunities we are seeing experiences. So yes, luxe, but they want to be immersed. They want immersive experiences. We're also seeing trends in solo travelers and she travel. So there's other experiences with other opportunities there as well. But absolutely see a lot of opportunity for shoulder seasons. And when we look at sustainable tourism, when we look at less crowds, higher value, there's an opportunity to market that. There will always be a customer looking for that.
Well, you say the go years. I find it, you like it. I find it faintly unnerving. It sounds like about to go years.
Oh gosh, no, it's ready to go. It's ready to go.
Just about going. Look, you don't choose your own nicknames; they choose you. So we'll live with that one. And I'm glad.
She doesn't mean go while you can, Tom.
No, the go years, ready to go. They've raised their children. They've worked very, very hard. They have a lot of income and willing to spend on these trips. Some of them spending upwards of 30,000, 40,000 Canadian dollars. There's actually a Facebook group that I think has over 500,000. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it actually attracts people from Canada, the US, Australia, the UK. And it talks about these go years and this travel. And so definitely don't mean it in that context at all. I love it. I think it's ready to go, ready, set, go. It's their time to travel and to prioritize and to treat themselves.
But you know what, I would add to that too, Tom. The whole notion of shoulder, for example, shoulder season travel is far more advantageous today to many travelers who are can be a bit concerned. Hey, if I go in peak season, not only might it cost more, but it's going to be more crowded too. So I'm willing to adjust my plans and travel schedule to accommodate what might be a better experience for me. It gets back to Suzanne's point about experiential travel, I think, too, where you can immerse yourself better. And so I think that the old definitions of when peak season versus shoulder season on either side is kind of being tested, if you will, and we're seeing a lot more travel in that regard. I know for example, I just in the last month or so got back from a trip to Malta. And of course, Malta in February is not at all peak season. It was a wonderful trip. It was still fairly crowded, but not like Malta can be in the summertime. Plus, the weather was, the temperature was wonderful. It was a little bit rainy, but the temperature was fantastic. It was a great time to visit Malta. And I think a lot of people are looking at that kind of opportunity to expand their horizons, looking at the experiential perspective of travel, which is so important to many today, and taking the time and spending the money to do it.
I think I ought to stress that rain in Malta is not a frequent occurrence. In fact, most of the Maltese I know travel to the UK for rain tourism.
And that makes sense, but they don't need to do that in February.
They don't need to do it in February. No, you're right. I think the thing to stress about shoulder and off-peak tourism, from our perspective, and we're interested in it because we're now focusing on it in some ways, is that it's not a lesser experience in any way than high season tourism. I was you were in Malta. I was in Mantua, in Italy 4 weeks ago, and I'd been there before, but I'd never been in February, and I had never been in a more atmospheric place in Italy with the fog and the mist blowing in off the lake, in this medieval town with absolutely deserted experience going around the castle and the ducal palace. They have a picture gallery there, which normally you're or a painted room, which normally you're restricted to 5 minutes in at any one moment. There we were the only people. I was the only person standing in there with my traveling companion. We were by ourselves for an hour. Absolutely unique and only available at off-peak and low season.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I mean, all this. Now, the good news, those of you in the audience, is that some people are posting in the discussion forum. Please post at the discussion forum. Please post in the chat. It's there so that we can get a dialogue going. We've got Jeffrey Owen writing in saying that I've seen since the 1st of March, so since this emergency has broken out, marginal growth in the US and Canada source markets, along with feedback that customers are getting their trip in early in order to avoid price increases, rather than going by. Hang on, I have from. So I did beg your pardon. I scrambled that statement. Okay, no, don't worry. It was somebody else's remark. Well, getting their trip to avoid. They're getting their trip now in order to avoid price increases, which may be coming through with the increasing price in the oil. And another person has written in with, I think, a question to assist the dollar go further, particularly for the Lux market. Is there appetite and confidence from travel advisors to go straight to DMCs in market for their clients rather than going via a domestic intermediary? Well, there's a question. So this is an advanced question I was going to come on to later on, but I'll go straight to you. Do you think travel advisors are going to go? We've got all these DMCs, destination marketing companies, sitting in Europe, open to do business directly with people like yourselves. Are people starting to do that, or is that a pie in the sky hope?
What I can say, if I may, Tom, is that, what travel advisors, given today's complexity, and it's not just the complexity brought on by the situation or geopolitical situation in the Gulf and beyond, it's just the complexity of travel has evolved extensively over time, and it's more complex now to travel than it ever has been. So the value of a travel advisor today is far greater than ever, given that complexity. And what advisors look for in partners, what advisors look for or favor when it comes to the tour operator or supplier are there things like transparent pricing. They need to get out exactly what it is. What is it that the pricing is with a great deal of clarity. They're looking for clarity in terms of cancellation policies. They're looking for a reliable on-the-ground delivery, so that when their clients get to the destination, they know that they can count on the tour operator there that provided the services to do a good job. They're looking, frankly, for consistent commissions, and very importantly, they're looking for fast response times. Again, the value with these people are that they have the business, they have the clients looking for this, and this is what matters to advisors. And when I would frame it simply by saying that when advisors trust a partner, they send the business that way. So much of it is about the trust between the advisor and the partner, and knowing that they can trust the partner will deliver what is promised and committed. So there are many ways that you can look at engagement with travel advisors in the U.S., and I'm happy to talk about that in a moment too, Tom, if you would like.
Suzanne.
Yeah, and perhaps I can delve into perhaps where Mark was looking to go. So from the ACTA perspective, we have very strong partnerships with tour operators and with providers. And so I think just being able to facilitate that and give that access and that availability. So obviously, like many other associations, we host events, whether they are in person or webinars, where we're able to share the information, where they are able to get informed. We have them in Canada. We have webinars. We also have them abroad. We've been to Europe, and we've met, not only have we done that in partnership with some of our partners that are tour operators and provide these more local solutions, but then we were able to connect them with local DMCs as well. So I think when we're able to facilitate that, they're able to develop that relationship. They become trusted relationships, and I think they become long-term as well. So I think it's something that we do as an association. We're able to connect our large membership networks with our very, very important partners, and we're very, very happy to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's an area for considerable expansion and exploration. It's the thing that you're stressing, if I get it right, is it's all to do with trust and credibility.
Yes.
And it's going to be very difficult if your relationship with your client is gold. We had an intervention from Japan, I remember once, and said, what you in Europe don't understand is that the Americans say the client is king. In Japan, this is not good enough. He is God, like this, they said. And if you allow the slightly blasphemous element on that, your relationship with the client is vital, and you're not going to risk that for somebody you simply don't know. You've got to be absolutely assured that what you're buying on the client's behalf is absolutely rock solid. And I can see that there is a real credibility issue there that needs to be bridged. Not necessarily, not a gulf, but it's something that has to be addressed. And I'm just intrigued. You've already touched on it, but do you think you talked about the luxury market? I suppose what many people are wondering is, are you more critical when it comes to buying a big ticket item, if that makes sense? That people will buy a smaller package or a city break and organize it themselves. If they want to organize something that's really expensive or is really complicated, this is where you add value in terms of reassurance. Would that be a sensible argument, Suzanne?
Very much so. I think for the big ticket vacations, I think the higher the investment, the more the traveler is seeking reassurance and expert advice. And just circling back to your past question as well, I think the more informed the advisor, the more confident they're able to sell as well. So obviously they're more confident, they're able to sell, and then obviously the customer is better informed and they're seeking assurances that where they're going, where they're being advised to go with that expert advice, and that their investment is protected. It truly is, as we've mentioned, sometimes significant investments. I think for more complex itineraries, multi-generational level trips, luxury travel, long-haul vacations, advisors often become central to the decision-making process. And travelers want that confidence and ensure that the details are right and that support exists all along the way, prior to travel, during the travel, and of course, in the event that things do not go as planned. So I think the customer is more critical and seeking to ensure that their investments are well advised and protected.
Mark.
Yeah, I would add to that. I agree with everything that Suzanne said. I think that given the overall complexity of travel, and especially high-end travel, as you describe it, Tom, things like route complexity, fare volatility, traveler uncertainty, especially at this time when it comes to things like the global instability that we're seeing today, specifically with Gulf airspace disruptions, is all the more important. So that's where the traveler looks to, especially when they're spending a lot of money, they look to the travel advisor for help. And so in this case, the opportunity for advisors, it really covers things like crisis navigation, reassuring the traveler, providing them with the detailed things they need to know in order for the traveler to make a decision in terms of where they want to go, what they want to do, and that includes contingency planning. I think that the complexity of travel reinforces the value of the professional travel advisor exponentially at all times. If it's not the stability issues in the Gulf or a pandemic, there's the reason and need for a travel advisor is paramount in the eyes of the traveler, and all the more important to help ensure the traveler feels comfortable and confident in the decisions they make about what to do and where to go.
Well, I mean, look, we're agreeing with one another, which, from the audience point of view, is both informative and rather dull. So I'm gonna be a bit more antagonistic here, only a little bit, all right? But I'm just intrigued. I remember I was at a dinner attended by a young tyro from an airline back in about 1992, and he, as far as he was concerned, the received opinion amongst the entire flag-carrying airline fraternity was that tour operators and travel agents would cease to exist by the year 1998. They would just be dust. And the fact that I was disagreeing with him didn't make the conversation worthy of disagreement. It made me unworthy of notice. I mean, it was one of those things where you could be dismissed entirely for maintaining that there might be flaws in that argument. And we're now seeing another, not threat coming on, but another issue arising, which is artificial intelligence and people using artificial intelligence to process bookings and pick up itineraries. Do you think this is a threat in any way, or do you think this is something you're going to rise above in the same way that both tour operators and travel advisors have risen above all the other things that we've been laying in our path, claiming that they're going to be usurping? Mark, what do you think about this?
I would say that AI has really presented a huge opportunity for travel agencies and advisors because of the help that it can provide, not necessarily in thinking as a consumer would. That's what the travel advisor does. They provide that personalized touch that only can be done really between the advisor and the flyer or the traveler, and that's what the traveler expects. But there is so much that AI can do to help the travel advisor, whether it's looking to help pull together a predetermined itinerary that the agency has found for the traveler, certain messaging that can occur, et cetera, and just making the role of the travel advisor, frankly, all the easier in what is a very complex world. We're not seeing that the potential for booking from AI to be the case. In fact, many of the online sources today are not traveling down that path at this time to do the actual booking, again, because of the complexity and the need for the traveler to spend usable quality time with a professional who not only understands the market, but understands the personal needs of the traveler, they being in their customer portfolio. So we don't see it as a threat today. We see it as an opportunity for agencies and advisors to take advantage of and make use in a good qualified way that is advantageous to both the agency, but ultimately to the traveler as well.
Suzanne, I mean, is this a genuine threat, or is this just a useful tool for travel agents to interface with clients?
No, we also see this as an opportunity. Obviously, with artificial intelligence, there will be making use of it, the individual. But the reality is we see it as an opportunity. And the fact is that travel remains highly personal. And as we've been speaking throughout this entire time, we have a lot of geopolitical situations going on, crisis situation. And so the traveler wants current information, practical guidance, and confidence that they have someone to help them navigate changing conditions when things go wrong. The travel advisor is also best positioned to help inform the customers on how to protect their investment, their trip, through travel insurance. And that is a very, very critical role, more than ever. And that's not going to go away. I heard something recently. We talk about AI, artificial intelligence. I heard about HI, human intelligence, and I loved it. I feel that is something that our industry brings. I also heard another term where it talks about artificial intelligence, and it's very black and white. If you've used any of the AI models, you'll see it comes out. When you speak to a travel advisor, now there's color. That trip now has color, and I love that. I think AI can support information gathering. I think it will help, like many other industries, with efficiencies. But again, it does not replace judgment, experience, or the trust between advisor and a client, or the relationships with tour operators, with DMCs on the ground, with the airlines, with all of us as an entire industry, including with the media. I think it's especially significant for travel decisions, and travelers still value that human expertise. And I think that's not going to go away. In fact, with all the recent crises we are seeing, I think it's going to become even more value.
You know, Tom, I would add to that, if I may, that everything that Suzanne said is absolutely spot on. There's also the need for what we call, and I'm sure many of on the call today have heard the term duty of care. Mm-hmm. What do you do when things go wrong? And they do. I mean, the situation in the Gulf is an unfortunate but perfect example of that. That's not something that AI can quickly, exponentially handle. So when there's a geopolitical situation, someone is stuck. It doesn't matter whether they're a leisure traveler or a corporate traveler. They need to get out. They need to get home, or they need to be accounted for. How do I know my travelers are safe? And how can I assist them in terms of where to go, what to do with the right information to manage whatever that situation might be. Now, the situation in the Gulf is quite a significant and severe one, but it can also be simpler things like storm disruptions. Suzanne's talking about potential outages in Ottawa today because of bad snow and storms. That can happen at any time. That's right. And so what do your travelers do? If I have travelers in Ottawa, what help do I need to provide them so they know what to do if something is disrupted in terms of their travel schedule? It could be as complex as air rerouting. It could be tour cancellations or adjustments that are made. And the consumer, the traveler, is going to rely on their advisor to be the one to give them the best advice in terms of what do I do, what should I handle, and the advisor will give them options in that regard. So it's the good segue between the tour operator in this case and the traveler. could be the airline and the traveler, but the duty of care aspect is a very, very important factor.
And I think you're right. I mean, well, it's almost the kind of Ghostbuster phrase, who are you going to call?
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
this is, and to a certain extent, you sold it, so you're answerable to a certain extent. No, I think that was really well put. The thing that I find alarming about AI is how, and we obviously use it or try to use it a lot in the association because it is enormously helpful. It also can be alarmingly inaccurate. And if I was
Yes.
relying on it to book a vacation or relying on it to come up with a price on a costing, I found that let's put it like this: we couldn't communicate the information we get from them without double verification. I think there's a way to go, and whether it will get there is another matter entirely.
I think, yeah, but you know what it does, Tom? It provides, in my view, it provides a good, what I'd call a good straw man or
Yeah.
a good baseline for what it is that you're trying to get at in terms of information, data, et cetera. But the key point, and you're getting at that now, everything that AI might provide you in any form, you need to verify it, right? Because it may not be correct. You cannot just ask something of any AI tool and expect to give you accuracy. So for example, if I'm using AI, I always ask it not just for the answer, but what was the source of that information that you're providing me? How did you know? Where did you get this from? And then I can use that to verify that indeed that is correct. And if you tell me that the source of that info and data is ASTA, that's the wrong answer. I need to know beyond that. Where did that data come from? So trust but verify. I think that was a common phrase used here in America some time ago too.
I definitely. I think I think you're hitting it on the nail. I think the interesting point on this level is a sort of old problem that we had when I'll name the company TripAdvisor came out, and this was causing all kinds of ructions everywhere. And some, in many ways, it was genuinely disruptive, and it was quite welcome. It wasn't welcomed by tour operators at the time because it was providing a commentary on the on the hotels they were providing. So they were to a certain extent going, "This hotel's great, trust me," and people would then look at TripAdvisor and think that there were grounds for not trusting that recommendation. And I remember, and there were all sorts of questions about the credibility of the reviews being posted. There were all sorts of questions being generated about whether or not people were self-reviewing or doing attacking reviews on rivals. The water was genuinely muddy. And I remember discussing with a hotelier in Florence. He said, "Look, Tom, this isn't popular, but I know the hotels in Florence. I've run a lot of the hotels in Florence. I know which ones are the good ones and which ones are the bad ones. And on the whole, this is a pretty accurate reflection of comparative quality." And I said, "Well, that's reassuring. But what I really want is your opinion, because you know. All this other stuff is very muddied and complex. I want the person who's the expert who can provide me with targeted intelligence on exactly where I should go, because you're valuable. All you're doing is verifying the plausibility of secondary information." And so then, and even now, I think what we need is people who know what they're talking about. Because as you're pointing out, Mark, AI kind of knows people who might know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's
not a human. AI comes across when it answers you as in a human voice, as though you're speaking to someone that knows you. And it does not. It can't, right? So you're absolutely right, Tom. You need the expertise, for example, of someone who not only may be getting data regarding hotels in the Florence market, but a person who's actually experienced them and can verify that what it is telling you is correct or not. And often you'll find your definition of what is good quality might be quite different from what AI is telling you. So having that human connection and touch just helps with the whole notion of personalizing it specific for your client that you know, but AI does not know, right?
Hmm. Well, now I'm just going to spin around and talk about just about well, we touched on AI and how it's important but not critical. I'm much more interested if you can just pause for a minute and look at the future. I suppose I could just ask you for a fairly merry set of predictions of which which not hidden gems, but which destinations in Europe do you think are going to be on the up? You know, what do you think is underappreciated but will soon be appreciated in your respective markets? Suzanne, have you got any sort of hunches as to what's going to be a winner in future years in Europe as far as Canada?
Oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. But well, I think secondary destinations, the
Yeah,
primary ones, are always going to remain strong. I
yeah,
think the undiscovered ones, and I think where there is good, as I mentioned, air accessibility, and if it is not direct, again, where there is itineraries or information that is shared so that it shows that there is still an ease in attaining these destinations. As I said, Canadians are going further. They're willing to go a little bit further than they did. So I don't mean to make mention of destinations like Latvia or Slovenia or Croatia or other destinations. They're looking for safety. They're looking for predictability. They're looking for, as I said, experiences, the unknown. And then they also enjoy some of the more traditional destinations as well, not only for first time travel, but return travel as well. I think what's important, again, is just for, and I saw a question in the chat that mentioned, are there any gaps? What North America travelers want from Europe and what advisors currently have available to sell. I think if it's available, travel advisors will sell it. And I think it's very, very important that it's visible and that it's updated. Travel advisors don't know what they don't know. They might go and look for curated experiences, but any opportunity that a tour operator has to be visible and to exchange with travel advisors and to offer that education, that's where you're going to see that return on investment and that increased market share.
Mark.
Yeah, I think I agree with Suzanne, and I would add to that, what advisors are looking, tour operators will succeed if they can show the travel advisor the clear value that what it is that they have for sale is there. And as Suzanne said, that there's strong air access, but advisor education and support from the supplier, from the tour operator is so key and so important. So, the things like, and Suzanne, you touched on this too, but I think you'll see engagement with you, an individual tour operator, grow if you provide training programs in terms of what it is that you offer. If you provide, as Suzanne said, webinars on your offerings, FAM trips, familiarization trips are important. If you also have dedicated BDMs that the advisor knows they can call upon to get at quickly the detail and information that's needed. So I think that tour operators who treat advisors as long-term partners consistently will continue to see strong bookings, but the agency needs to know you, understand you, and you need to look to train them in ways that can provide the trust that we've talked about earlier. So as I said earlier, when advisors trust a tour operator or supplier, they will send you the business. I think all of that is key.
I mean, this is fascinating and pertinent. I mean, if we are looking at DMCs, I think, and I suppose a huge proportion of the tour operator or intermediary membership in ETOA is a DMC, and we have a lot of wholesaler members. I'm right in thinking in broad terms. Are you seeking commissionable packages from these people, or are you looking for net rates from them that you would mark up?
Marking up air in the United States is not a common practice.
Yeah.
But commissions are always attractive to the agencies that sell the trips. That's not to say that agencies do not also have the alternative of charging professional fees. But I would also say it's about engagement. It's an engagement between the advisor and the tour operator. And as you talk, Tom, I'm thinking about just, in fact, as we speak, the reason the ASTA office is empty this week, aside from me and one or two others, is because ASTA is having this week something we call the ASTA River Cruise Expo out of Amsterdam. And we've got almost 2,000 travel agencies, 2,000 American US travel agencies in Amsterdam aboard 18 or so river cruise ships that they are literally using them for their accommodation. River cruise lines are providing service as though you were feeling and experiencing it as a true passenger, but lots of education going on, etc. But the key point here is that in addition to that, there is a large trade show next to the Movenpick Hotel in Amsterdam, where tour operators and others have the opportunity to show what they offer. And here's a case where an ASTA event like this, you don't have to come to the United States to experience it. It's happening in Europe, the US. ASTA is in Amsterdam this week, opening up its doors to the likes of tour operators and others to show what it is that you offer to travel agencies that are anxious to learn and grow their business. So, when you look at ASTA events like that, and I know ACTA, Suzanne looks at doing similar, but trade portals, again, dedicated BDM, business development manager outreach to agencies, et cetera. There are so many ways that you can touch and engage with the advisor community that matter, and you want to get known and you want to become trusted so that our advisors trust and use you to book for their clients.
Suzanne.
Yes, so from this very much the same. We actually went on a river cruise with our members in November and into early December. We've had educational international destination conferences with the Azores, with Tourism Portugal, with Tourism Spain last year in a non-main hub, so a secondary destination, and it was extremely successful. And we were able to connect with local DMCs, as I said. When it comes to, I think, the most effective relationship building piece for getting in touch with travel advisors, I think, as Mark mentioned, the relationship building. And so that means absolutely working with established trade channels, participating in trade events, both on this side of the pond, but also on your side of the pond in Europe, offering advisor education. That's such a strong part, as Mark mentioned. We see the strongest results usually come when destinations, wholesalers, and advisors communicate consistently and invest in education. So that's a very, very critical part. And then maintaining visibility with trusted associations and partnerships, such as with ACTA and, of course, ASTA here. So I think, again, advisors respond best when there is regular engagement. It's practical, it's consistent, it supports their ability to serve the clients well. And of course, to your question at the opening of this, obviously there is an expectation for travel advisors to be remunerated for selling a product or service. And so many, not all in the industry, Canada, this has not become common throughout the entire industry to charge professional fees. And so the norm is usually commissions now. And at ACTA, we're actually very, very sensitive to that. We have what we call our 7 asks. And so we certainly look, the value of the travel advisors is remunerated in order to protect their livelihood, of course, and in order to protect the sustainability and longevity of their businesses and the travel advisor as a profession.
I don't think anybody working at ETOA questions the value add of the travel advisor, and consequently would not question for 1 minute that they need to make money out of this. This is a business after all, guys. What I was just intrigued is that—
Tom, if I can interject there, you'd be surprised at some, and Mark, perhaps you can offer as well, where, I'm learning there's certain parts of the business where there is zero commission offered. And so through our advocacy, of course, we speak with the federal government. And so we absolutely expect for Canadians to be remunerated for their work. So I just want to interject on that. I was actually very surprised to learn. I'm not saying it's tour operators. I'm just saying within the industry that there are some pockets where that is the case.
Sure. And if I can add to that, if I may add to that, Tom, I would also say that in addition to that, travel advisors do have what I call a fiduciary responsibility as well. And that's really, really important. It's to do what is best for their customer and client. So while commissions, for example, and or payment may matter, they're going to make the best choice for their customers. That's their fiduciary responsibility. That's what their ultimate goal is from an ethical and principle perspective, which is a standard requirement just in order to be an ASTA member. So, yes.
Can I just say I salute both of your eagerness on this. I was just trying to get to the end of the statement, which the commissions are obviously payable in some areas. In other areas, the DMCs, wholesale tour operators, are used to issuing net rates to be marked up by the intermediary. And certainly, if you look at Asia, the norm is to request a net amount for what was being presented, and they would then add their margin as they thought fit. From what I'm understanding from you, on the whole, you're looking for a published price that you can show the consumer, and then you're seeking commission from that.
Or at least, Tom, there needs to be clarity. If some tour operators may want to look at the net opportunity with advisors, the advisors or agency needs to understand that. Then it becomes a commercial agreement between the agency and the tour operator. Obviously, that in the U.S. at least is not the case today from an air perspective, but land and tour operator perspective is different. So again, that's where the trust and relationship between the tour operator and the agency can evolve to be quite clear and very well understood, and the value that can be provided by both is really good. So it's all about relationship.
Yeah, I mean we've got to find, as they say, the right horse for the specific course, so that we can see how that would bring. Well, look, thank you so much for that. And I know this is not. It's important. I don't want to end on remuneration, but what I just want to do is congratulate you both on really animating what is a business with real earnestness and passion. And thank you very much. Is there one tip you would have for European tour operators wanting to deal with your travel advisor community? Mark, you start off.
You know, what I would say in more general terms is that, as we said earlier, North America, and I know I speak for Canada as well, the demand for Europe, it remains strong, it's growing, but it is increasingly shaped by trust, by clarity, and by partnership. Those are key. And travel agencies really guide clients through this complex, uncertain time. They elevate destinations, they elevate tour opportunities, and investing in meaningful trade engagement is the way to go. So frankly, Tom, doing what you're doing here today with the tour operator community in Europe is a great step in terms of establishing and highlighting the value, and more like that. More like this, I think, would be greatly valued too.
I hope this is the beginning of a longer conversation. Definitely.
That's right.
Suzanne?
Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity in order to have this conversation and to meet, although I cannot see them on screen, with the European Tour Operator Association. I think for myself, we have a very, very strong partnership program. Please feel free to reach out if we can be of value and assistance. And I think a lot of what Mark said, the strength of our sector continues to come from trusted relationships, and it's through conversations like these and opportunities like this. I think as we look ahead, I think the future is bright. I know there's challenges, there are some clouds, but I think that there's a lot of opportunities for our industry all around. Canadians want to travel. They're not staying home. They're going further. They're staying longer. Europe is a big winner in some of the travel shifts. And I think our focus should be on building traveler confidence and that predictability, and supporting strong distribution partnerships and ensuring the travel experience remains seamless from planning through back to return. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, well, look, thank you guys. Thank you so much. And I very much look forward to extending the conversation further as the months progress. So thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much, Suzanne.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Bye, Tom. Bye,
Nice.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.